Welcome to Conspiracist. Today, we're undertaking a focused examination of a pretty compelling and, well, enduring idea. That's the hypothesis that governments, maybe other powerful groups too, have intentionally concealed evidence related to what gets called the secret history of the world. This concept basically posits that there's this fundamental but suppressed narrative of humanity's past, actively hidden. Our goal in this deep dive is really to explore the reasoning, the arguments, and the purported evidence that proponents present. And we'll be maintaining a strictly professional, objective lens throughout our discussion here.
Right, and I think what immediately stands out about this hypothesis is just the sheer scale of the claims involved. Yep. When people talk about the secret history of the world, they often mean, incredibly advanced ancient civilizations, ones that maybe met some kind of catastrophic end.
Okay, yeah.
A prominent example you hear cited a lot in this context is the work of Graham Hancock.
Hancock, right.
Especially his discussions around the Younger Dryas impact event. That's, about 12,800 years ago? Mm-hmm. He suggests this cosmic event triggered massive destruction, potentially erasing or sort of resetting the path of these advanced societies.
So let's unpack that a bit. This idea of sophisticated ancient cultures just decimated by a huge cataclysm. The narratives often seem to suggest that survivors, if there were any, then became these really pivotal figures.
Culture heroes, yeah.
Right, culture heroes who passed on their advanced knowledge to subsequent populations, maybe ones that were less developed technologically at that point.
Exactly. That theme pops up again and again across different versions of this secret history. And this transfer of knowledge, it's frequently linked to the concept of mystery schools.
Ah, mystery schools.
Yeah, the book The Secret History of the World by Mark Booth, for instance, it really digs into this idea, the notion of an unbroken line of esoteric teachings passed down through these schools over vast stretches of time.
Wow, unbroken.
Well, that's the claim. And connections are often drawn between figures and symbols that seem quite separate otherwise. Like parallels suggested between the stories of Horus and Jesus, or the enigma surrounding the age of the Sphinx. These are seen as potential threads in this hidden history tapestry.
So the implication goes way beyond just, forgotten tech or lost cities. It suggests this continuous stream of profound, esoteric wisdom that's been deliberately kept from mainstream understanding.
That's right. And it's even argued that perhaps the world's major religions might actually stem from these ancient mystery schools.
Really?
Yeah, with their original, perhaps deeper meanings becoming distorted or maybe just misinterpreted over the centuries.
Okay, so if this vast history and wisdom exists, what are the primary motivations proposed for hiding it? Why this huge ongoing concealment?
Well, according to the hypothesis, the reasons are pretty significant and multifaceted. A key motivation often cited is preserving the authority of, established academic and institutional frameworks.
Establishment, right.
Graham Hancock, for instance, he's been quite vocal, arguing that mainstream archaeologists actively suppress alternative theories.
Why?
Because, supposedly, these theories challenge their foundational expertise and the whole prevailing historical paradigm. It suggests a kind of conflict.
A conflict between established knowledge and these, potentially revolutionary new takes on the past.
Precisely. It points to a possible power dynamic.
The idea being that these institutions have a vested interest in keeping the current story of history just as it is.
Exactly. And our material suggests a second, maybe even more powerful motivation, the desire to control the public narrative.
Control the narrative? How so?
The argument is that a really radical reinterpretation of history could have deeply destabilizing effects on society, on our structure.
Destabilizing.
Yeah, leading powerful entities to carefully manage, maybe curate, the accepted version of the past.
That's a critical point. I mean, if the accepted historical timeline was fundamentally overturned?
Imagine the impact. It could challenge existing social structures, religious beliefs, political systems, everything. The concern, as the hypothesis posits it, is that such a huge shift in understanding could lead to significant social upheaval.
So suppressing any evidence that contradicts the official story becomes necessary from that perspective.
That's the logic presented, yes. Active suppression to maintain stability.
Okay, so we have this concept of a secret history and these proposed motivations for hiding it. Let's look at the evidence. What kinds of evidence are frequently brought up to support this hypothesis? One category seems to be these anomalous archaeological finds.
Yes, exactly. And a really compelling example often cited is the Paracas candelabra down in Peru.
The candelabra, right. Huge thing on a hillside.
That's the one. That's this enormous geoglyph etched into the hill overlooking Pisco Bay, maybe 600 feet across. What makes it interesting for Protonists is the uncertainty around its age, its original purpose.
We just don't know for sure.
Well, pottery fragments found nearby date to around 200 BC, but the candelabra itself, it could potentially be much, much older. And theories range from it being a navigational marker for ancient sailors to, representing a creator god's trident.
So that ambiguity leaves room for speculation about maybe advanced lost cultures.
Precisely. And it's not an isolated case, is it?
No, the Nazca lines, also in Peru, get referenced all the time in this context.
Right, those huge geoglyphs, animals, geometric shapes.
Visible from the air, mostly.
And interpreted by some as more evidence of advanced knowledge or maybe even lost civilizations with engineering skills far beyond what we typically attribute to that period.
The sheer scale and the precision are often highlighted, aren't they?
They are. The scale, the complexity. Like the candelabra, they raised legitimate questions about who made them and how. For those who subscribe to the secret history idea, these sites are anomalies. They don't fit neatly into the conventional story.
Suggesting a more complex, maybe more technologically advanced past than we currently recognize.
That's the interpretation, yeah.
Okay, moving beyond these physical anomalies. Another big category of evidence cited is myths and legends.
Right. The underlying idea here isn't that these are just fanciful stories.
Yeah.
No, the idea is they might contain encoded memories. Memories of past cataclysms, maybe memories of advanced civilizations.
So this connects back to Hancock's culture heroes idea.
Exactly. The notion that these legendary figures and myths are actually echoes of real survivors who passed on vital knowledge to the next generations.
Interesting. So myths as a kind of hidden history record.
That's the argument. What's particularly intriguing, proponents say, is when you see similar motifs, similar narratives across cultures that were geographically very separate.
Like flood myths.
Widespread flood myths are a classic example, or stories of advanced beings, flying machines, powerful technologies from some distant past. These similarities are pointed to as potential evidence of a shared historical basis, rooted in these ancient events and the civilizations that experienced them.
So the interpretation shifts from purely symbolic to potentially veil historical accounts.
Yes, that's the shift in perspective proposed.
Then we get into the realm of esoteric and occult teachings.
Right. These are often presented as surviving fragments of these very ancient wisdom traditions, perhaps preserved through secret societies or maybe less visible lineages of knowledge keepers.
Okay.
Our material references the Hermetic teachings, for example, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus in ancient Egypt.
Hermes Trismegistus sounds very old.
Very old. Often placed chronologically even before Abraham. And these teachings are sometimes seen as a potential key to unlocking this deeper, hidden history.
Like a philosophical lineage.
Kinda. The Kabbalion, another text mentioned, elaborates on Hermetic philosophy. It suggests these core principles underlie various esoteric traditions across cultures, even ancient India. The central idea is that these enduring philosophical frameworks contain this consistent body of knowledge that's been intentionally obscured, perhaps, or only made accessible to initiates over time.
Okay, so archaeological anomalies, myths, esoteric traditions, and then there's the final critical piece, the claim of active suppression.
Yes, this is absolutely crucial to the whole hypothesis. The argument isn't just that evidence is overlooked, it's that evidence supporting these alternative views is actively misinterpreted, dismissed, or even deliberately hidden.
By whom?
By the established authorities, academia, governments, the powers that be.
And this ties directly back to those motivations for concealment we discussed earlier. Protecting authority, controlling the narrative.
Precisely. This assertion of suppression is really a cornerstone of the secret history hypothesis. Any lack of mainstream acceptance, any difficulty getting funding for research into these alternative ideas.
That's seen as proof.
It's often interpreted by proponents as further evidence of a deliberate cover-up, which just strengthens their conviction that there's a hidden past being actively guarded.
Okay, so we've laid out the core ideas of the secret history hypothesis, the kinds of evidence cited. Now, it's really crucial we apply a critical lens to these claims. Our sources offer several important points of critique. One of the most fundamental seems to be the issue of falsifiability.
Yes, and this is a significant challenge. It's inherent in many conspiracy-based hypotheses, really, including this one. The way the secret history hypothesis is often structured makes it exceptionally difficult, maybe even impossible, to definitively disprove.
How so?
Well, As highlighted in our material on conspiracy theories, any lack of supporting evidence, or even evidence that contradicts the theory, can be reinterpreted by proponents as just more proof of the conspiracy, proof of how effective the cover-up is.
So the lack of evidence becomes evidence.
In a way, yes, it creates this kind of logical loop. It's self-sealing.
Right. Our source material mentioned epistemic self-insulation. The hypothesis becomes resistant to external challenge.
Exactly. And there's this cascade logic described too.
Cascade logic.
Where each piece of information that seems to contradict the secret history isn't taken as a refutation. Instead, it gets absorbed into the narrative. It's seen as further proof of just how broad and sophisticated the conspiracy must be. More people must be in on it. The deception runs deeper.
So if a scientific dating method places an artifact in a time frame that contradicts the secret history timeline,
then that dating method, or maybe the scientists using it, might just be dismissed. They're part of the establishment system perpetuating the lie.
I see. That inherent resistance to being proven wrong makes objective evaluation incredibly difficult.
Exceedingly difficult, yes.
Another critical point raised in our sources is the frequent reliance on evidence that, well, evidence that's often seen as unreliable within established academic fields.
That's right. The material on conspiracy theories notes this tendency to prioritize, say, anecdotal accounts, eyewitness testimonies, maybe interpretations of ambiguous finds,
while often disregarding more rigorous objective analyses based on established scientific methods.
Precisely. And this can be particularly problematic when you're dealing with historical claims that really need precise dating, thorough material analysis, careful contextual understanding.
So while myths and legends are culturally important,
interpreting them as literal historical accounts of, say, advanced civilizations without strong corroborating physical evidence analyzed scientifically. That requires a pretty big inferential leap.
Which leads us naturally to the concept of pseudo-archaeology, which our sources also address.
Yes, pseudo-archaeology. It's generally characterized by interpreting archaeological findings through the lens of a pre-existing belief, often dismissing or misrepresenting established archaeological methods and evidence standards along the way.
Can you give some examples?
Well, things like pyramidology, theories about the Great Pyramid having non-human origins, or the idea of a lost global Tartarian empire. Even some historical attempts, like Nazi archaeology trying to prove an ancient Aryan race. These often fall under that banner.
What's the key difference, then, between that and legitimate archaeology?
The crucial distinction with pseudo-archaeology is that it often starts with the conclusion already decided.
Working backwards.
Essentially, yes. Then selectively seeking out evidence regardless of quality or context to support that predetermined conclusion. This is really the opposite of the scientific method, which involves forming hypotheses based on evidence, then rigorously testing them, being open to proving them wrong.
And this pseudo-archaeological approach can lead to misinterpreting artifacts.
Yes, or ignoring crucial context, or just outright rejecting well-established scientific understanding if it doesn't fit the desired narrative.
It's important, though, to differentiate this from legitimate historical revisionism. Our sources mention that, too.
Absolutely crucial. Legitimate historical revision, as the material describes it, is a necessary ongoing part of historical scholarship. It involves reevaluating existing evidence, incorporating new perspectives as new information comes to light, or as our societal values and understandings evolve.
Like, say, expanding historical study to include the perspectives of previously marginalized groups.
Exactly. That's a prime example of necessary and legitimate revisionism. It's driven by a critical re-engagement with the evidence, aiming for a more nuanced, more complete understanding of the past.
Whereas pseudo-history,
conversely, often involves distorting, misinterpreting, or sometimes even fabricating historical narratives to fit a specific agenda or belief system. It frequently disregards established standards of evidence and method.
So the fundamental difference really lies in the approach to evidence and the commitment to rigorous objective inquiry.
That's a very good summary of the distinction.
Our sources also touch upon the underlying appeal of conspiracy theories more broadly. Why do people find these ideas compelling?
That's a really interesting question. It's suggested they can provide seemingly straightforward explanations for events that are complex, maybe unsettling. They can offer a sense of order, maybe even control, in a world that often feels chaotic or unpredictable.
A simple story for a complicated reality.
Perhaps. And then there's the psychological aspect, the well-documented tendency for people to seek out and favor information that confirms what they already believe.
Confirmation bias.
Right. confirmation bias, which, as our material notes, can get seriously amplified within online echo chambers where you're mainly seeing views that mirror your own.
That psychological dimension seems pretty significant.
It is. Conspiracy theories can offer a sense of understanding, even a kind of empowerment, by providing a clear narrative. Who's responsible, why things happened, the idea of a powerful hidden group pulling the strings. While it might sound scary, it can, paradoxically, feel more comprehensible than grappling with randomness or complex systemic factors we don't fully grasp.
Finally, there was a Reddit thread mentioned in our sources that offered some potential red flags for spotting pseudo-historical thinking.
Ah, yes, those can be useful indicators sometimes.
One recurring theme was an excessive focus on being suppressed by the establishment.
Right. If a huge part of the argument is about being unfairly ignored or attacked by mainstream experts, rather than primarily focusing on presenting solid evidence, that can be a warning sign.
What else?
Other red flags included making grand claims that, all current science will be overturned once their theories are finally appreciated, or constructing narratives that just seem tailor-made to fit a desired conclusion rather than emerging naturally from an objective look at the evidence.
So these flags sort of highlight a pattern often seen in these kinds of narratives.
They do. The emphasis often shifts away from rigorous investigation and evidence-based arguments, and more towards personal stories of persecution or bold predictions of future vindication, often without much concrete evidence to back it up right now.
Okay, so we've done a pretty detailed examination here. We've looked at the hypothesis of a secretly concealed history, explored the kinds of evidence often presented for it, and considered several critical perspectives on those claims. It seems clear that while the idea of a hidden past is intellectually stimulating, maybe raises some intriguing questions about history and knowledge.
A thorough, objective evaluation really demands a critical, evidence-based approach, both to the arguments and the evidence presented.
Yeah, you have to weigh that evidence carefully.
Ultimately, the line between legitimate historical questioning and belief in a deliberately concealed past often comes down to methodological rigor. It comes down to the burden of proof. And crucially, a willingness to engage with and genuinely address evidence that might actually contradict the narrative you prefer.
This deep dive really underscores just how complex understanding the past can be, and the absolute importance of critical thinking when we encounter these extraordinary claims about history. Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.